It was in that moment, after we thrashed Villarreal 5 goals to nil away from home, that I decided that I have to make a video about this tactic. It is ridiculously good. Now, the tactic has sort of transformed my season. If you look at our team schedule, I think the only game we lost was against Valencia, and this was the very first match in the tactic when I introduced the tactic into the team. Before then, we were doing quite okay. I kind of fumbled my preseason, and against Real Madrid, after we lost 2-0, despite being respectable to Madrid and trying to consider them as a big team, it didn't really work out for us. Defending doesn't work in Football Manager. I don't know why. Sometimes it does, but more often than not, you will lose. And against Real Madrid, I lost, and I'm tired of losing. So I went on to change the system. Against Cadiz, I didn't yet introduce the tactic. I had started working on it, but I didn't yet introduce it. So against Valencia was the first time I actually introduced the tactic. We lost the game 1-0. But I didn't really bother because I knew we were building towards something else. And ever since then, it's been plain sailing throughout. Even a team like Arsenal, that if you go over to the globe and check the world reputations, looking at the club rankings, Arsenal are the next best team after Real Madrid, Man City and PSG. But Atletico Madrid are all the way down here. We went on to dominate the game against Arsenal completely and actually won the game 2-1, and that was also an away game. Against Villarreal, we've beaten them 5 goals to nil away from home. Why I say so is because they're one of the top teams in La Liga. If you look at the Spanish division, look at the squad preview, after us in third place, Villarreal are the next best team in there. And also competition stat wise, if you look at our team stats, we have the most goals in the league in 24, and we didn't yet score all these goals before. It was recently that most of these goals actually came to be, and fewer shots against were right up there. Even in possession stats, I think we're still below. We're still going to rack up the possession much later. We had around 30-something% possession before, when I was trying to be a bit more solid defensively and trying to play direct attacking football, direct football. It didn't work out, but we're now racking it up, and probably to the end of the season we're going to be in the 50s for possession. Fewest conceded, we're now in 7th alone, and I think the 7 goals were conceded before I was switching to my new tactics. So we've not really conceded that many goals. If you look at the schedule, I think in our last 3 games we kept clean sheets against teams like Inter Milan, and I think Arsenal was the one team that scored against us. And against all the other teams, I like to sit deep in defensive shape. You will destroy them and score a lot of goals. Granada, Santander, Real, RB Salzburg are quite a good team, but we went on to smash them 3 goals to nil. This Racing Santander and Granada are teams that would likely sit deep and try to defend in the low block and make it difficult for us to score, but it didn't matter. We went on to score 4 goals past them. The tactic has been quite good, and if you're struggling to score goals, if you're struggling to break teams down, or if you're a top team and you're struggling to become one of the elite teams that wins everything, this might be the tactic for you. So to build the tactic, you're going to want to pay close attention here, because I'm going to go through all the individual player roles and team instructions and player instructions, especially for those guys on console. If you want to go ahead and recreate a tactic for yourself, you can follow along with the video and do that. So beginning with the goalkeeper, I like to start from defense to attack. Beginning with the goalkeeper, you're going to want your goalkeeper to play as a super keeper, this time on support duty. The only internal player instructions for him is for him to tackle harder. Now I've noticed that the tackle harder instruction sort of encourages your team to do a bit more in this game. I think if you have it off, it doesn't really make much difference for a super keeper, but the central defenders have different instruction. For the central defender on the right hand side, he's a ball playing defender on defend duty. The only instruction that you're going to ask him to do is to actually dribble more. I think on the left hand side is a similar instruction for him. So ball playing defender on defend duty. Now sometimes I like to have one central defender on defend and the other playing as a ball playing defender, but I've noticed that for Football Manager this sort of works best. We didn't design the game, but the game has what favors the match engine, so let's just get into it. On the left hand side, you opt for inverted wing back, this time playing on support duty, and the inverted wing back is going to take a lot more risk when he's passing. He's also going to dribble more, try to get into that central area. He's also going to shoot less often and of course get further forward. There's a reason why this is going to be possible, because he has to support the midfield. He's also going to mark tighter, and then that's the one instruction for him. I think on the right hand side is a similar instruction, so you can have your wing back in there, inverted wing back, sorry, taking more risk, dribbling more, shooting less, marking tighter, and getting further forward. The link between the defense and the midfield is in the defensive midfielder role, and this guy, instead of being on defend, he's also going to be on support this time. And what you're going to ask him to do is also dribble more, and this time shoot less often, get further forward, encouraging him to add to the numbers in front. Alongside mark tighter, you can also ask him to tackle harder. Now, the central midfielder on the right, it's a Mezzala playing on what duty? The attack duty. His internal player instruction is going to be to dribble more, shoot less often, and and mark tighter. The reason why the mark tighter works for the Mezzala is because if you don't ask him to actually be more defensive, he's going to forget his defensive duty. So especially when he's playing on attack now, adding the mark tighter instruction encourages him to be part of the team defensively as a unit. On the left hand side, the Mezzala is going to be slightly more conservative. Even though he's going to play on attack duty, he's not going to cross as much. So the cross less instruction is actually turned on for him. He's also going to mark tighter and of course dribble more and shoot less often. Now the reason why the Mezzala is going to have a lot of freedom to get into higher areas, into the half spaces, is because the inverted wing backs are going to be the players in this role here where the Mezzala has actually vacated. So ahead of the Mezzala, you're going to have two wingers this time playing on attack duty. There's another winger in here playing on attack duty. For internal player instruction, the winger is only going to shoot less often and mark tighter. And I think both wingers have the same instructions, so all you have to do is just replicate them. Shoot less often, mark tighter for the winger on the left and the winger on the right. For your striker, you can use an advanced forward on attack duty. The only instruction for him is going to be to take fewer risks, dribble more, and shoot less often. Now that we got the player roles all set in with their player instructions, if you're new to the channel, remember to hit the subscribe button so you can get notified when more Football Manager tactic videos like this do come out. So let's get into the team instructions, and before we get to the mentality, let's look at how the team plays when they're out of possession. What you want the team to do is play with a high press. You can leave the defensive line on standard, but you want your trigger press to be much more often, and also you want your team to prevent short goalkeeper distribution. In the transition phase, you want your team to counter press and to counter. You also want them to distribute the ball to the fullbacks, and then you can ask your goalkeeper to throw the ball long. Now when the team is in possession, you want the team to play with a shorter passing, and you also want them to play out of the fence because it helps to actually build from the back and encourage your ball playing defenders to be on the ball, because they'll be the one to carry the ball out of your defense into the opposition territory and into the midfield. You want a slightly higher tempo, but you're also going to ask your team to play with low crossing. The overlap on the left and on the right hand side is mostly for the wingers, because the inverted wing backs are going to get into the central area, so the wingers are going to be the ones that are going to stay out wide and force the opposition fullback to get into those areas, try to defend them. Then you have space for the inverted wing backs and the Mezzala, of course, to actually get into the half spaces. You also want the team to run at the defense, but in order to control the excess running, you can turn on the walk the ball into the box instruction. Now the last tip that is going to tie everything together is to switch the mentality from balanced to positive. Now once that's done, you can notice that the attacking width becomes fairly wide, and most of the other instructions sort of tweak slightly, so the team is going to be slightly more adventurous now with their play, and they're going to try to create more chances and try to score more goals. So there is a system that is giving us a lot of goals in La Liga right now, and we're pushing on to try and win the league this year. Let me know in the comment section if you need more Football Manager tactic videos like this, or if you have any questions about Football Manager and Football Manager tactics, you can let me know in the comment section as well. I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy your Football Manager.